Welcome back to Mastering Public Health. So far, we have faced poisons the earth handed us. Now we confront the ones we made ourselves. Since World War II, we have flooded the world with synthetic chemicals, most of them never tested for what they do to a human body. In this final part, we trace the persistent poisons that never leave, the newer threats hiding in our plastics and our food, and the impossible question at the heart of it all. How safe is safe enough? It began with a book. In 1962, the biologist Rachel Carson published Silent Spring, a bestseller that shook the American public awake. Her message was blunt. The chemicals we were spraying into the environment were doing real and lasting harm. She focused on DDT, a pesticide so widespread it could be found in lakes, in plants, in insects, and in the bodies of people on every continent. More than any single event, Silent Spring launched the modern environmental movement, and it drove the sweeping wave of laws that followed in the 1970s. The United States banned DDT in 1972 and a family of related insecticides soon after. But banning them did not make them disappear, and that is the whole problem with this class of chemicals. They dissolve in fat, not water, so they lodge in the fatty tissues of living things and break down agonizingly slowly, lingering for decades. Worse, they concentrate as they move up the food chain. A trace in the water becomes a heavier dose in the small fish and a dangerous load in the predator or the person at the top. The clearest example flows right through New York. For more than 25 years, General Electric plants discharged industrial chemicals, called PCBs, into the Hudson River. The discharge finally stopped, but the chemicals settled into the riverbed and stayed. Even now, fish caught in the Hudson carry PCBs at levels unsafe for children and women of childbearing age to eat freely. A massive cleanup dredged a 40-mile stretch of river through 2016, and it did cut PCB levels by two-thirds or more. Yet the legacy lingers. Some poisons, once released, never fully let go. PCBs belong to a larger group scientists called persistent organic pollutants, or POPs, and they may be the most widespread chemical contaminants on Earth. Carried by wind, water, and migrating animals, they reach even the remote Arctic. When people were exposed to heavy doses in cooking oil disasters in Japan and Taiwan, thousands fell ill with severe rashes and lasting effects. In 2001, most of the world signed the Stockholm Convention, a treaty to phase out the worst of these chemicals. The United States signed it, but here is the recurring theme. It never ratified the agreement. Now to a newer worry, one likely within arm's reach right now. Two chemicals, BPA and phthalates, are woven into everyday plastics, the linings of food cans, water bottles, shampoos, and more. The trouble is that they do not stay put. They leach into the food and drink they touch, and traces of them now sit in the blood of nearly every person in the United States. What makes them alarming is not that they are classic poisons. It is that they scramble the body's hormone signals. We call them endocrine disruptors or hormone hackers. So what does hormone hacking actually do? BPA can mimic estrogen, throwing off development in ways linked to early puberty and reproductive abnormalities. Phthalates work the other way, interfering with testosterone in males and lowering sperm counts, and both have been tied to the rise of obesity and diabetes by disrupting how the body handles blood sugar. The evidence is still debated, but the concern was strong enough to act on. BPA has already been pulled from baby bottles and infant formula packaging because the risk to the youngest and most vulnerable was too great to ignore. Pollution does not only come from factories, it also comes from how we now raise our food. Modern factory farms pack thousands of hogs, cattle, and poultry into confined operations, and they generate a staggering amount of waste. By one estimate, these farms produce 1 million tons of manure every single day, about 3 times the total waste of the entire United States human population. That waste is stored in vast open pits called lagoons, meant to hold it until it can be sprayed on fields, and those lagoons all too often leak and burst. When those lagoons break or even just sit there, the harm spreads 3 ways. They release gases like ammonia and hydrogen sulfide that sicken nearby residents with headaches, coughing, and burning eyes. Seepage taints the groundwater that feeds people's wells, and that polluted water carries high levels of nitrate, which has been linked to blue baby syndrome, a condition that can kill infants. So, why isn't this fixed? Because most of these farms are owned by a handful of powerful corporations with the economic and political muscle to resist real regulation. All of this leads to one impossible question: how safe is safe? The uncomfortable answer is that absolute safety cannot be achieved. Consider the scale. More than 80,000 chemicals are registered for use, with about 2,000 new ones arriving every year, while testing crawls forward just one chemical at a time. So regulators are forced to compromise. Every single standard weighs the cost of control against the benefit to health. Push for zero risk on one chemical, and you may neglect a dozen more dangerous ones. This is the hard, unglamorous arithmetic behind every environmental rule. The newest chapter in this story is a class of chemicals so durable we call them forever chemicals. Known as PFAS, they are used in non-stick and waterproof products, and they resist breaking down for generations, building up in our water and our blood. In April 2024, the EPA set the first ever national limits on several PFAS in drinking water and named two of them hazardous under the Superfund law. It is real progress, but it comes with the same caution that runs through this whole chapter. These rules can still swing with each election. So let us close chapter 20. A clean environment is not a luxury, it is the very basis of public health, and protecting it is one of government's core jobs. The hazards we face span natural metals, invisible radiation, synthetic chemicals, and the mountains of waste from modern farming. And the lesson beneath them all is one of balance. We cannot achieve perfect safety, but through prevention and careful judgment, we save the most lives we can. Guard the air, the water, and the soil, and you guard everything else. Thanks for watching Mastering Public Health.